We are absolutely hooked on overstimulation in this society. Now, why am I talking about stimulation and overstimulation? Because when you take a cup of coffee or some other kind of stimulant, what that does in the body is essentially the same thing as the stress response. One of the best statements I ever heard of it came from a UCLA professor. He said, "I have in my classroom students who are awakened in the morning by the timer attached to their stereo system. The stereo system turns on playing heavy metal rock at 120 decibels. They get out of bed, go in through the living room where they turn on the television set, which plays simultaneously with the stereo system at an additional 80 decibels. They then go into the kitchen where their automatic coffee maker has 750 milligrams of caffeine ready to help them start the day. They then get into their car, put the top down, drive 70 miles an hour down the freeway with their in-car tape deck playing at an additional 90 decibels. They then drive into the parking lot, get out of the car, come into the classroom, and I am supposed to amuse them by speaking. I mean, we hear a lot of concern about our educational system. Does it never occur to us that the classroom teacher has got to compete with everything Bruce Springsteen and Michael Jackson can throw at these kids? I say Bruce Springsteen and Michael Jackson because those are the only names I know. You and I, chances are real good, because of our generation, we're not hooked on electronic stimulation. The younger you are, the more likely you are to be hooked on electronic stimulation. Chances are that the people in this room are not hooked on the drugs that we count as drugs. We might be hooked on the drugs that we don't count as drugs, like the ones that we will consume at break. But the chances are that the people in this room are hooked on another kind of overstimulation. And that is that feeling of being turned on and pumped up that comes from working all the time, overworking all the time, never stop, living under demand. Now here's the punchline. Those of us who believe that we're going to be maximally productive over the long haul by staying wired all the time are wrong. That turned on wired response, that stress response, that's real useful on a short-term basis, but not over the long haul. So you have to ask yourself, are you in this for the short term, or are you in this for the long term? See, this child is too young to talk. This child is too young to even to understand what's being expected of him. So what's he learning? He's learning that he is surrounded by expectations that he can't live up to and can't understand. When this little boy becomes a man, what will he be like? No matter how hard he works, it'll never be enough. No matter how much he makes, it'll never be enough. No matter how much he contributes, it'll never be enough. He doesn't have an off switch. He doesn't have a sense of enoughness. The goalposts keep moving. Because before he was even able to understand what was being expected of him, Things were being expected of him that he couldn't understand and couldn't possibly live up to. And that'll become the theme of his life. What that produces is the type A personality. Some of you may recognize these. The most obvious characteristic of the type A is a terrible sense of time urgency. We're under constant pressure. We live in constant motion. We move fast, eat fast, walk fast. We're impatient in conversations, impatient in meetings, impatient in traffic. A fate worse than death for a type A to be called as a passenger in a car driven by a slow driver. So I'm under a lot of pressure at the office or with clients. So I get ready to fight and I get ready to run. Can you run from the office or from a client? No. Can you fight with the people at the office or with the client? No. So what do? You stuff it down and you take it home with you. So you come through the door. Ready to fight. And you can fight there because you are with the people who love you most, the people whom you trust most, the people with whom you feel safest. The reason for the evening argument is that two people are coming together who have both been under a lot of pressure, and they are now with the person they feel safest with. That's the strain on the nuclear family. If you're coming through the door wired up and you get into that evening argument a lot, what that means is you really need physical activity. And the best thing you can possibly do is exercise with your spouse. Now, walk up and down the stairs if that's all you have time for. Walk around the house. I mean, you'll giggle because you'll feel stupid. You see, exercise with somebody you love, it strengthens both your body and your support system. It's the best thing you can do. Now, here's one you may not have thought of. And this is as true as anything we know in psychology. Behavior change comes only at moments of readiness. Prior to that moment of readiness, no amount of teaching or preaching will bring about the change. What brings about the moment of readiness? When it just gets to be more uncomfortable to leave things the way they are than to change them. I meant what I said when I started this morning. Follow this stuff, and 80 to 90% of the people in this room will live until we're 80 or 90 and die peacefully in our sleep. And we won't cost the insurance industry, and we won't cost the healthcare system.